The old farmhouse at the end of Hemlock Lane had always been a place of rules. For 10-year-old Lily and her 8-year-old brother Ben, the biggest rule during their summer visits was Grandpa's single, solemn directive. After sundown, you stay in your beds, no matter what you hear, no matter what you think you see. You don't move. They had never questioned it. It was part of the house's charm, like the smell of pine soap and the way the floorboards sang specific songs underfoot. But this summer was different. Grandpa was gone, his absence a heavy silence in the halls, and Grandma moved through the rooms like a ghost herself, her eyes perpetually redrimmed and distant. The first night, the noise began. It wasn't a crash or a howl. It was a soft, wet clicking, like a giant insect testing its mandibles, followed by a slow, dragging shuffle that seemed to move just outside their bedroom door. Lily froze, her hand clenching Ben's under the quilt. They lay in breathless silence as the thing passed. The second night, Ben had to pee. Desperation overriding fear, he slid from the bed. The moment his foot touched the cold wood floor, the clicking stopped right outside their door. A low, vibrating hum filled the air, a sound of intense focus. Ben stood, one foot on the floor, one on the bed, paralyzed. A single tear of terror rolled down his cheek. After an eternity, the shuffle moved away, down the hall towards the stairs. Ben scrambled back into bed, a small, warm patch of shame spreading on the sheets. On the third night, the power went out. The deep country darkness was absolute, a suffocating velvet. That's when they heard Grandma's voice from the hallway, a strained whisper. "Children, listen to me. There is something in the house with us. It comes from the woods. It hunts by movement. If you hear it, you must become a statue. No breathing, no blinking, nothing. It is the only rule that matters now." As if on cue, the clicking resumed. Closer, it was in the hallway now. They could hear the drag of something heavy and soft over the runner rug. A new smell seeped under the door, the scent of damp soil, rotting lilies, and something sharply metallic. Lily lay perfectly still, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Ben trembled beside her, a barely suppressed quake. "Don't move, don't move, don't move," Lily chanted in her mind, the mantra mixing with the memory of Grandpa's voice. The door handle creaked, then began to turn with agonizing slowness. The door swung open. It stood there, framed in the deeper black of the hallway. It was tall, its head brushing the top of the doorframe. Its shape was vaguely humanoid, but its limbs were too long and jointed all wrong, like a broken puppet. Its skin was the color and texture of mushroom flesh, glistening in the faint starlight from the window. It had no eyes, just deep, pitted sockets, but its head swiveled slowly, scanning the room. From its mouth, a pair of long, slender palps clicked together softly, tasting the air. It took a step into the room. The floorboard groaned. It froze, its head tilting. It was listening for the echo of the movement. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs, a drumbeat screaming her location. She prayed Ben could stay still. She willed her own lungs to stop, her blood to cease its frantic rush in her ears. The creature took another slow, deliberate step towards Ben's side of the bed. It leaned down, its faceless head hovering inches from Ben's petrified form. The smell of rot was overwhelming. A thin, clear string of viscous saliva dripped from its clicking palps onto Ben's cheek. Ben's resolve shattered. A tiny, involuntary whimper escaped his lips. His leg gave a minuscule, spasmodic jerk. The creature went rigid. The soft clicking stopped. Vibrating hum returned, louder, more intense. It was a sound of pure, predatory certainty. Lily watched in frozen, silent horror as one of those long, boneless arms rose. It didn't have claws. Its fingers ended in smooth, bony points like polished needles. It hovered over Ben's chest. Then it struck. Not with force, but with a horrible, penetrating precision. The bony point pierced Ben's pajama top and sunk into his chest with a soft, wet punch. Ben's eyes, wide with disbelief and agony, locked onto Lily's. His mouth opened in a silent scream. His body convulsed once, a violent jerk of protest, then went utterly, completely still. A single final tear traced a path through the creature's saliva on his cheek. The monster stood over him, humming. It seemed to be listening. After a moment, it withdrew its needle finger with a sickening, suctioning sound. It turned its head towards Lily. Time stopped. Grief, white-hot and total, threatened to consume her. Her brother was gone. The urge to scream, to throw herself at the thing, to beat it with her fists, was a fire in her veins. But Grandpa's rule echoed in the ashes of her heart. Don't move. The creature took a step towards her. It leaned in. The clicking palps brushed against her hair. The smell filled her nose. She became nothing but a command, a statue of a girl. She emptied her mind of everything, of Ben, of Grandma, of fear itself. She was a still life, a painting, a piece of furniture. She didn't blink as the palps traced her eyelashes. She didn't flinch as a cold, damp strand of its hair-like growth touched her neck. She held her breath until stars exploded at the edges of her vision. Minutes passed. An eternity. Finally, the humming ceased. The creature straightened up. With one last slow scan of the room, it turned and shuffled out, closing the door softly behind it. Lily did not move. She lay there as the first gray light of dawn crept into the room, painting Ben's still form in tones of ash and pearl. She lay there as the birds began their morning chorus, sound that now felt like a brutal, jeering mockery of the night's silence. She lay there as the house began its own chorus of daytime sounds, the groan of ancient plumbing, the sigh of the wind in the eaves. None of it was the clicking. None of it was the hum. It was the smell of coffee that finally broke her paralysis. Bitter and familiar, it drifted up from the kitchen below. Grandma was awake. The ordinary ritual of it, the sheer defiant normalcy, acted like a key in a frozen lock. A great shuddering gasp ripped from Lily's lungs, so violent it felt like her ribs would crack. The tears came then, not as a flood, but as a silent, endless seepage, soaking her pillow as her body remained rigid, trained now to its new, terrible purpose. She heard the slow, heavy tread on the stairs, not the dragging shuffle. This was the sound of unbearable weight. The bedroom door, left ajar by the creature, was pushed open. Grandma stood there. She didn't scream. She didn't rush to Ben. Her face, already etched with the loss of her husband, seemed to crumple inward, as if absorbing this new blow into a permanent hollow. Her eyes met Lily's. In them, Lily saw a reflection of her own frozen terror, but also a grim ancient understanding. "Oh, my boy," Grandma whispered, the words barely sound. She walked to Ben's side, her movements careful, deliberate. She brushed his hair from his forehead, her wrinkled fingers trembling. She did not touch the small, perfect red mark over his heart. She simply stood, her own tears falling onto his pajamas, making dark blue blooms on the cotton. Her gaze returned to Lily, still statue, still in her bed. "You didn't move," she stated, a fact, not a question. Lily managed the tiniest shake of her head, a movement that felt alien and dangerous. A sigh, deep and ragged, escaped Grandma. Good girl. The praise was a poison. It tasted of survival and betrayal. "Now," Grandma said, her voice hardening into something practical and terrible. "We have to be very quiet. We have to be very still. It will be back at sundown. It always comes back." The day was a funeral, conducted in whispers. There were no police, no flashing lights, no strangers in the house. Grandma explained this too, in hushed, broken phrases as they sat at the kitchen table, untouched toast before them. Grandpa had known. The thing had come with the old woods, a predator of a forgotten age. The authorities saw only tragedy, a sick child, a weak heart. To bring noise, chaos, movement, it would attract attention of a different kind. It would draw it out into a frenzy. The only safety was in absolute stillness, in playing dead even after death. Together, they washed Ben's small body with a sponge at the kitchen sink, the water lukewarm and quiet. They dressed him in his Sunday suit. Lily's tears fell into the soapy water, but her hands, like Grandma's, were steady. They were preparing a rot effect, not a boy. Every motion was measured, minimal. Grief was a luxury that required movement, so they stored it away, building a dam of silence inside themselves. They buried him after noon in the small family plot behind the wild rose bushes at the edge of the yard. The earth was soft. The only sound was the scrape of the shovel and the thump of damp soil. Grandma said no words. Lily dropped a single smooth stone from the creek onto the fresh mound. It was all she could offer, a piece of the earth for a boy who had loved to skip them. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in lurid shades of orange and purple, a new kind of silence descended. The daytime rules were over. The night rules were now the only rules. Grandma led Lily to the root cellar, a cold, earth-floored space beneath the kitchen. It was not for hiding, she explained. The creature would always find you if you hid. It was for containing the movement. The cellar had a single heavy door with a small iron grate at the top. Inside were 2 cots, a jug of water, and a bucket. We go in at dark, Grandma said, her voice barely audible. We lie down. We become part of the house, become part of the ground. We do not move until first light, do you understand? Lily understood. The house above them would be a temple of stillness, a mousetrap baited with silence. They were going into the grave voluntarily to avoid being dragged into it. That night, as the last sliver of light vanished and the clicking began in the walls above them, Lily lay on her cot. She stared at the dirt ceiling, feeling the vibration of the slow dragging steps through the earth. She heard the hum fainter now through the door. She thought of Ben, alone under the roses. She thought of Grandpa, who had known this ritual. A new, more terrible understanding dawned on her. This was her inheritance. This was her family's legacy, not the china or the linens, but the knowledge of how to be a statue. The creature shuffled above them for hours. It was searching. It knew the population of its territory had changed. It was taking a new census. Lily lay still. She did not cry. The tears had been used up, and in their place was a cold, hard stone of resolve. She was 10 years old, and she had learned the most important lesson of her life. To live, you must first learn how to be perfectly, utterly dead. The girl who loved to run, to laugh, to skip stones, was buried with her brother. What remained in the root cellar was a survivor, a still, silent thing, waiting for the dawn. And she knew, with a certainty that would shape every breath she took for the rest of her life, that a part of her would never move again.